The gang culture in Chicago it's like embedded into the people in the neighborhood. You know, you see families where the dad, the mom, the sons, even the daughters are part of the same organization as they were, and they're all raised to think and be like that. You know, and this is something that has existed in Chicago for years. I mean, since the Al Capone days. Organized crime has been something that's been in Chicago for a long time. You know, the gangs are very organized. They're not just a bunch of kids drawing on walls. Do we have the kids that draw on the walls? Yeah, there's a lot of kids that'll tag and do all that stuff, but the older guys are moving drugs in big quantities, big money, you know, buying houses, flipping houses. There's a lot of money in Chicago, so there's a lot of organizations trying to make profit. I believe that it's different. The gang culture is different in Chicago just because of how everything's set up from, you know, I always tell people, you know, if you guys watch the movie Warriors, how every gang had a I guess you could say look, a trend or a mascot. It was all, that's how it is in Chicago. Every gang has a mascot. The Latin Kings have a king, a lion, anything that represents a king. The Saint Disciples have a baby devil and a diaper with a pitchfork. The Cobras have a snake. Imperial Gangsters have the Pink Panther with a crown. Every gang has a mascot in Chicago. Every gang has a color, pink and black, purple and black, blue and white. I mean, every gang has colors, has mascots. So they're very, very organized to the point where they're collecting dues to buy guns. They're collecting money from the members to do parties. There's prayers, there's laws, there's instructions on how to carry yourself as part of that organization. You know, they've highlighted all these things on Gangland. If you guys have watched the TV show Gangland, the Saint Disciples were on there. They told the story about Gizmo being, you know, killed. They tell the story about Little Mars being killed by that guy from the north side. These are all true stories that happen on everyday basis in Chicago. You know, they don't call it Chirac for no reason. Like it's always been bad like that. There's always been murder. There's always been gangs. You have to be very careful where you go, how you look, what you're wearing. You have to be alive and up and just on your P's and Q's. The north side structure of gangs is a little bit more clustered. There's a lot more gangs in the north side of Chicago than there is on the south side. On the south side, there's fewer gangs. And there's a lot of north side gangs that have made it into the south side, but in the south side, really the only powerhouses there is the Latin Kings, the 2-6, the SDs, the Ambrose, the Rosas, the Saints. And I'm talking about Latino gangs, you know what I mean? The black gangs are pretty big and they're all over the place. GDs, Vice Lords, Blackstones, EDs, on New Breeds. There's hundreds of gangs in Chicago, but the south side is less cluttered. They have less gangs. The north side's a little bit more crazy because they have a lot of different kind of gangs. But it's all a culture, a life. I tell people, you grew up like not leaving that block where you live at. You never go nowhere else. You stick to that block. As a kid, you know, since I was, you know, young, I couldn't really go with the gang members, the older gang members, to the parties and to the nightclubs. So my job was to stand in a gangway between two houses that was in our neighborhood, right on 59 and Spalding. And I would sit there all night holding a gun, you know, waiting for the distress call to come in, the emergency call, them getting chased by another gang or followed, or, you know, stuff like that, or someone coming into our neighborhood to tag while everybody's gone. Like, you're put out security for a reason, you know, and you're sitting there holding a gun all night. It could be cold, it could be hot, it doesn't matter. Like, your job is that, to protect the neighborhood while everybody's gone. That was my life growing up, man. I really thought that was part of an organization. I really thought that I was, you know, being a gangster. And I became very numb to a lot of things because I seen a lot of my friends, you know, get murdered in front of me, get ran over, shot, I mean, stabbed. Every possible violent act you can imagine, I have seen it. The thing is that I was so lost for so many years because of pain that I had from a childhood that I really thought that that was my identity, who I was or who I was supposed to be. I really took it on, the whole gang culture. The only thing that for me was hard is, I went my whole life trying to figure out like what side of town I was gonna live on because my parents were moving me around so much. It was very dangerous for me because I was in 2-6 neighborhood, then I was in 2-boy neighborhood, then I was in like King neighborhood. So I had to be so careful how I carried myself and who I hung around with that when I became an SD at the age of 14, that's when I met Valerie. Valerie was dating the leader of my gang, the Saint Disciples. At the time, I was 14 years old, very damaged. Childhood was, bad. I was running away from home a lot because my dad was always kicking me out. I was just hard to manage already. I was looking for something on the streets. Valerie ended up being almost like a sister mother figure in my life because at the time I was homeless. She knew that I needed money. She knew that I was, I guess you could say willing to work, willing to hustle, willing to adapt or whatever. And at the time, like I said, she was dating my leader of the organization I was part of. He had a small place where they were selling crack cocaine, rocks. That was actually like my first, I guess you could say, job as a drug dealer, that when I got there to take over the spot because someone else was working, they told me I was gonna get $2 off of each rock I sold, and I was like, $2? I was like, that sounds like nothing. But little did I know how many rocks were gonna be sold. Like it was a nonstop. Now I know why he had to switch workers, because pretty much I stayed up the whole 24 hours the first day just selling. I made $1,000 my first night. And, being so young, I was like, man, this is it. This is like the ticket, and I worked. I got greedy. I was like, give me more days. I want to work more days. And one day we were just sitting there, and he came to check up on me, came to bring me some food. Valerie was with him, and he sat down with Valerie on the sofa, and we just started chopping it up, about what was done, what was needed to be done, money-wise and selling-wise. And right in that moment, the cops started raiding the apartment downstairs from us. Everybody got up in a panic because, we figured it was us that were raiding. We just heard the commotion. We heard the screaming. So I ran to start hiding all the guns. There was like 3 guns in the apartment. There was drugs in there, and everybody was running in commotion. And they ended up raiding us. They ended up raiding us next, right after they raided the apartment underneath. I don't know if they messed up. I think they messed up. I think they got their information wrong, and they ended up raiding the wrong apartment and raided downstairs. They gave us enough time to, flush everything and move everything. But they came in. They found the drugs. They found horse tranquilizers. They found all kinds of stuff, stolen property, blah blah. At the police station, I mean, I could see the stress on my boss, on the leader of that we were following. I don't want to say no names. I could see it in his face. He was stressed out. Valerie was a G, just sitting there, keeping quiet. And in my head, I was like, man, I want to be, because you're a little kid, you want to make people happy, you want to make people proud. And I raised my hand and I told the cop that the guns were mine, the drugs were mine, everything was mine. I pretty much took the whole rap. And I think that was the first kind of piece where Valerie got to see that I was, I guess, willing to put my life on the line for them. Because remember, I'm looking at him as my leader, and I'm looking at her as pretty much like the queen of the leader. So, there's respect on both ends. So I took the rap. I got arrested. I got sent to the county. My supposedly friend and leader left me there. Didn't bail me out. My other boy, that was really close friends with the leader, he was the one that bailed me out. And he was like, I guess you could say like a father figure in my life. He always looked out for me. I lived in his house. I grew up on, when my family kicked me out, there was this lady in the neighborhood on 59th. She had a beauty salon. And she was like the mother to like all the Broward kids, she always looked out for us, always took care of us, always gave us good advice. And I started living there, and her son, ended up being like a big father figure for me in my life, a big motivator.